All right. Hey, Sarah Nickerson here, psychic medium. Next Gen Medium is how I do things. It's what I do it through. Nextgenmedium.com is my website. My deal is that I teach people how to use their psychic ability, their intuition ability, and connecting with the higher self in order to have a life that you direct and that you have choice in. Um, all of this stuff put together, I call gaining your inner authority or becoming finally one with your sovereign self. So we are sort of stripped of tools, or nobody shows us how to use these tools, psychic ability, intuition, merging with the higher self, in order to have our individual sovereignty. It is a cultural thing, and my job is to change that. Why? Because there was a time in my life when I didn't know I could do psychic stuff, mediumship stuff. I call psychic and mediumship the same thing. Together, psychic, intuition, higher self. This is like our metaphysical being, our metaphysical reality, and ways that we can interact with that part of us. So I didn't know I could do psychic ability until I was 33. I didn't know certain things I had experienced were psychic. And in that aspect, I had no idea that that stuff was integrated and baked in to my human experience until I took one class that just busted the door open and created a spiritual awakening. And I haven't been the same since, and reality is very different since that time. And I've gained a mission of helping people connect with these tools that are theirs. I also think of it as technology. And it's funny because as I've grown to understand more about astrology in the past few years, the more I can start seeing how metaphysical abilities interact with astrology, and how there's truth in astrology for me because of the things I've gone through with psychic mediumship development and intuition. Um, and these things just weren't a part of my life 7 years ago. And now it's everything. Now it's everything. And it's amazing every single day. It excites me every single day. And I want to pass along what I know to other people. I want to help people connect with that as much as I can do that, as much as I am capable of helping people with that. My website, nextgenmedium.com, I want people to get started on that journey for free, because it starts with self-discovery. It starts with an idea of, am I capable of doing that? And if that is a question, and there is an intrigue in that, then you are already halfway there. um, but you also have to go in with the intention that it might not be true, and your experience is what creates the knowing in there. Okay. All right, that's enough mystical, magical talk. Nextgenmedium.com is where you can get started. Let's go visit my website real quick. We're going to get into the subject of this video about reading Billie Joe Armstrong's birth chart. I think it's a really fascinating birth chart, but there's a reason why I want to talk about it and how it links in with what I teach and what I do. And it's actually something I offer to people. Is in this instance, I offer 3 different kind of chart readings. But in this instance, for this particular report, yes, I'm looking at Billie Joe's birth chart and I'm analyzing it. But I'm also taking a look at his tool of intuition, one of those metaphysical tools that connects us with the metaphysical piece of us. There's 2 realities we live in. There's obviously the physical reality, which astrology can speak to, with physical placements of planets, physical location of a human body. But there's things in the astrological chart that tell us about our metaphysical selves, our metaphysical tools, our tech. And that's what I want to help people with these reports, is to realize your tool that has been there the whole time you've been alive. You've been walking on this earth plane. We don't think of these tools as something that we just have. It is cultural to believe that some people have it and some people don't. If there's anything in spirituality, astrology, psychic, anything to do with being a human being, understand there is no such thing as black and white. Nothing. Nothing is this or that. Nothing. Everything has spectrum. You have a little bit of everything. There's no such thing as nothing. So with these chart analysis, I'm helping people connect with these tools that are there. They're innate. It is a part of your human being. And why you feel lost, why you feel powerless, why you feel like a victim, which is the condition of our current society. Everybody's a victim. It's because you don't know how to be the hero. You're not connected with all your tools. And I am here to say, once I was able to connect with my tools, the magic of the world came to life. Things to be excited about, things to be optimistic about, things that make you feel like you're in control and you're able to step back from this human experiment and say, I understand there's two sides going on here, but I'm able to look at it from afar and see the bigger picture going on here. And that's why I can say I see victims on both sides, but it's a victim mentality as well. Where's our heroes? Where's our heroes? And that's the person that can have that perspective and go, I see what you two have in common. It's the same thing. How do we fix that? How do we change that? And honestly, I'm going off too long on this. The victim thoughts, the victim, it's me against you, right? Part of that has to do with our insecurity because we don't know how to trust. We don't know how to feel truth. And we don't feel in control of choice. And that is exactly what the sovereign self is working to reintegrate into who you are and what's available for you. It's always there. It's always there. Man, I'm getting really passionate. This is my website, nextgenmedium.com. Actually, let me go to the front page here. I am working to create a library for people to start their own sovereign self journey. So here's my front page: Sovereign Self Skills Development, grow a relationship with your truth, gain your inner trust, and lead a life aligned with your higher self. That's choice. Truth, trust, choice. But if you are looking to just dip your toe into what I offer from a not well, it is a teaching perspective. It's sort of a product or a service here, but it's a teaching tool too. Of course, I do psychic medium readings, but in particular for this video, we're focusing on the astrological chart metaphysical abilities analysis. So you would click here if that's something you wanted. But when it comes to my library, my website is going to change soon, but the Sovereign Self Metaphysical Abilities Training Center is where I'm directing people. Yes, I have a community coming in 2026 where I'm going to be teaching and we're going to be convening. We're going to be doing psychic circles and training and philosophy and um, all kinds of great stuff where I'm training you how to do the things. We're creating community so we can all see what it's like in the many forms that it can occur. And we're also integrating this in order to teach others or um, be able to integrate this stuff into our metaphysical practices, Reiki, tarot. You know, if this is professional stuff that you do, there are people out there that are offering these services, but not feeling that honest, in your bones, truth, trust, choice. And my programs that I want to put together for practitioners, really specifically, is for you to feel that in your bones. So that if you are going through your valley of death, you can't feel emotion. This is the lowest low I've ever felt in my life, which is what I felt 2 summers ago. What sat subtly inside of me was my truth. And never before had I been faced with seeing or feeling helplessness or like a sense of fragility of my humanity side by side with the absolute fundamental spirituality is real. I can do psychic. I have intuition. These things are real. There's no doubt about it. And it's sort of a faith in God kind of concept, like unshaken. And I know through that experience that if I could feel like that and there's other people giving up their businesses because they're not feeling that, then there's something I need to share with people. So that's why any of this has come to be. This is my community coming in 2026. But down, if we scroll down, this is where you can get started on your personal exploration. This is where it all begins. You're gaining skills of intuition, psychic mediumship, higher self connection. That's the higher self embodiment kind of stuff. But it all starts with training attention and awareness. This is phase 1 foundation. Click that. And this is where you get all the tools to get you started on that journey. And my goal is to give you like 2 months of stuff to do. But I will say there comes a point in your journey when you're feeling a sense of like, I want to share this with other people. And that's what my community is going to be for. So if we go back a page or two, the evolution map is you're going to want to be integrated and feel a sense of solidness with your psychic abilities, with your intuition. You want to make sure you understand correctly. You want to connect with other people because it's through those conversations and through their realizations that you feel a sense of like, okay, I'm on the right page. I'm on the right track. It's not until you're integrated with other people who are going through the same stuff that you're going through or that have already been through it that you feel a sense of like, okay, all right, I'm doing it right then. Or having expectations like you don't know what this is all about. Our culture doesn't show you what this is all about. And that's what my community is going to be for. And then for the practitioners, the mastermind level, where we're embodying, we are, there's a phrase, hold on. The phrase I like to use is called liminal guide. So we are the people that are holding the light and we are representatives of it. And we are in the public saying we are representatives of it. Sometimes you don't have to say it. And people already see it, feel it, know it. They might not understand it, but mastermind is for the liminal guides. We're the people who are out there actively on a mission. Okay. So this video is supposed to be about looking at Billie Joe Armstrong's birth chart, of course. So why I picked Billie Joe is because Billie Joe is somebody that I have been a fan of since I was 8 years old, and um, I've been a Green Day. He's the singer of Green Day, by the way. And I've followed Green Day like every step of the way. There were a few times when I was like, I don't know if this band is for me anymore, but um, it's been an amazing evolution to watch this individual go through his life. And it wasn't until recently that I was like, hey, maybe I'll take a look at his birth chart. Being into astrology the past few years, understanding the concepts, really, um, for those who already know a little bit about astrology, it's a Hellenistic point of view that I like to look at things. I love the symbolism, and if there's anything we can understand about our humanity, it's understanding symbolism. And I think Hellenistic astrology is an amazing place to start there. And you can really build off of that in a spiritual sense, in understanding other things, um, or other divination methods like tarot. Tarot is right off of astrology and numerology and stuff. So, but anyway, Billie Joe was somebody that I was like, I'm just going to take a look at a chart. And now that I'm offering these different chart analysis in order for people to recognize their intuition and their psychic ability and merging with their higher self and the practice of purpose, which goes along with higher self. I thought I want to share how I do this because people don't even know what I'm doing. um, and I thought I'd do a video on it and do Billie Joe's chart in the process because, first of all, we get to learn about Billie Joe and see how astrology speaks truth in his story, which is fun. But also, you get to see the method in which, I'm sharing how in this instance, how your intuition is always there and how you can get to know this tool. And I always think of intuition as a partnership because it's something that's working with you, beside you, but it's not you. Like, this is the part of the metaphysical being that becomes a tech, that becomes a tool. But there, and has that other world connection. So sort of bridging the human and the metahuman. So let's take a look at Billie Joe Armstrong's chart. So when it comes to what I offer, I do an analysis and I create a video that I walk you through. And this is what you're going to see is pretty much what I offer. But I also have a written report because I'm a person that wants to see things written down. And so that's what I also offer. So you would get a video and you would get a written report. So let's look at the slideshow. This is how the video would look. And so for every report I do, I have a specially made slideshow that shows your birth chart, and we go through it piece by piece. So for this one, we are starting a little series where we're talking about Billie Joe Armstrong's birth chart. And so this is where I would be doing like an introduction, talking about innate energies and analyzing the self, and how we're going to do that in two different ways with this video. One is the astrological look, where we're looking at planet placements, personal energies, and cultural energies or generational energies relating to the planets. And then we're looking at, more specifically with this reading, a second half of the reading or analysis, where we're looking at your elements of intuition. I'm giving you tips on how this works for you based on the astrology, but also how you can recognize it so you can start building that partnership and that relationship. If you don't know what to look for, then it's sort of like you don't know what to pay attention to. And so with these readings, I'm telling you how things work based on how I've observed things work for me. In the beginning of my journey, psychic mediumship is how everything started. That's where I found truth to begin with. And then it was later into my journey that I could separate intuition from that. To me, it all jumbled up together. I didn't know that there was a separation of the two. And now I do. And now I can say that intuition is more about the body and what happens with the body, the messaging you're receiving in the body. Whereas psychic and mediumship, those are more cerebral for me in how I experience. I need to make a little asterisk note here. From my experience, intuition is more of the body, psychic and mediumship is more cerebral and of the head. Now, I could add in a little extra here that I am very air element in like how things look for my birth chart. So maybe that's an indicator of something. Also, if you're into human design, I've been told that I am a manifesting generator, generating manifester, whatever that is. So put those two things together. Also, I'm also going to put this note in there. Just found out ADHD. You might not be surprised watching this video, but this has been a recent revelation for me in my life, which has led to lots of holy shit moments. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that explains why, you know. So take those three things into consideration when I tell you this is how I experience things. Okay. This is where I would explain a little bit about like what we're looking at in the video, and a little bit about astrology here. I'm assuming whoever's watching this either doesn't care enough to want to learn about it and you just want to see the stuff that I got to say about Billie Joe, or you are into astrology and you know some of this stuff. So I'm not going to go into that here. So looking at Billie Joe Armstrong's birth chart, first of all, the information I used actually had an exact time, which is why I could even do this. If I don't have an exact time, then I'm not doing an analysis. So if you come to me and you don't have an exact time, I'm going to say, I can't do that, but I can offer you a psychic medium reading, which I'm totally down with. In fact, when I do these analyses, I do get information that comes through. So not only are you getting an analysis based off of symbolism, Hellenistic astrology, maybe even Vedic astrology, which is a part of another thing that I offer. But you have a psychic medium who's looking at the chart, and I've seen how stuff does come through and how looking at this information helps specify my psychic antenna. I guess that's how I can say it. It helps narrow things down. But at the same time, I also like to have a blank canvas to work off of with psychic mediumship. I don't like sort of being funneled in a particular direction. There's something about that doesn't feel right all the time. But sometimes things come through and I just can't ignore it. You know, to me, that's information that could be helpful. All right. So when we look at Billie Joe's birth chart, the birth chart is based off of what I have for information in which, Billie Joe's birthday is February 17th, 1972. I have an exact time of 4:02 in the morning in Oakland, California. Something tells me it's not Oakland, but we're just going to go with Oakland. And so here's what we have for what's called the Big Six. If you're into TikTok, I didn't know there was a Big Six. And maybe this is a TikTok trend. Maybe this came from TikTok, but it includes your personal planets and sort of these like identity, soul, energy planets. So we've got the big three, which is the sun, moon, and ascendant. And then we have 3 more. These are the personal planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars. We'll talk more about those coming up, but the big 3 are really like big identity pieces. So we're going to start there for Billie Joe. And usually what I like to do, and I don't think I necessarily did for Billie Joe, but and maybe we could, is taking a look at the broader view, the long view, if you will. No spider monkeys included. If we take a look at Billie Joe's chart, which is right here, what I'm looking at with the broader long view is where things look on the chart, where there's sort of an emptiness. And just because something's empty doesn't mean there's nothing happening there. That's not true. But there is a nice distribution here of energies that flow from his career house all the way around into his creative house. So that means there's a little bit of flavor with society energy, with personal individual energy, and with relationship one-on-one kind of energy. A lot there. But then there's also like not a lot of flavor. It's pretty direct when it comes to his community. So that's an interesting thing to note. I just looked at a birth chart yesterday where it was pretty much house 1 and house 2. Everything was in those 2 houses. And it was pretty interesting to see. I saw another chart before that where loaded up with the first house, Scorpio, Pluto, Mars, like super powerful energy there. But for Billie Joe, we're looking pretty even keeled. Now the next thing that probably maybe got your attention were these big red lines. And so where we see red lines is where we see dissonance, we see a tug of war, we see friction in a chart. So if I had something to show you that was a big blue line, then I can say there's an harmony here that works really well within this person's personal energy. For Billie Joe, there's just a lot of dissonance here, and we'll talk more about that. So for Billie Joe, what I would say as we go through this, we're just going to talk about his big 3 in this video. And then the next video, I think I'm going to address the rest of his chart. And then I'm going to do another video on his intuition. So for his big 3, we have his sun. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. I want you to pay attention throughout all of these videos having to do with Billie Joe, as we are talking about each element of his chart, each placement, is to look at the degrees that are like a first degree or a last degree, which would be like a 27, 28, 29. Like those are last degrees of a sign. But then we're also looking at the very first degrees of a sign, which can be 0 and 1, maybe even 2. And there's something, and you'll see a pattern, which is really interesting. So first we start off with the sun sign. This is the sign that we're all familiar with when it comes to our astrology. This is the one when you pick up the newspaper, you're looking for your sign. The only one you're told about that belongs to you, but you have many, many more. But this is how we like culturally like understand our astrology. So for Billie Joe, he would pick up the newspaper and he'd be looking at Aquarius because he knows that his sun lies within the segment of the calendar that belongs to Aquarius. So February 17th, he's in Aquarius, sun. The sun energy is like your soul energy. I like to think of it as your higher self energy. This is the energy that feels exciting. It feels good. This is the energy we're always trying to embody as much as possible because it feels good. This is a part of the teaching of higher self energy, you guys, right here. So for Billie Joe, that is 27 degrees Aquarius in the second house. So we've got 3 elements. We've got Aquarius, we've got second house, and we have a degree. So there's 3 things here that I would be pointing out for Billie Joe. One is, let's talk about the Aquarius piece. So let me point out his sun here, right here. 27 degrees Aquarius. Second house. So Aquarius is progressive. It's people-minded. It's actually, I always think of the masses. And I think a big part of me understanding Aquarius has to do with Pluto's transition into Aquarius and how much people have talked about Aquarius because of this massive change that's been happening the past few years. And that Pluto is finally like sitting pretty there for good for 20 years. So, you really want to understand Billie Joe, Billie Joe, then we're really going to get to know Aquarius. So, for the masses is such a huge term for me when I look at Aquarius and distribution. Technology is also an Aquarius thing, which is a part of the progressive piece. Now, one of the things that I started this video off talking about is that metaphysical abilities are our tech, our technology as human beings. It's our biological technology. And when I look at Aquarius and I think about that tech aspect, a lot of people will automatically go to, the things with screens as our tech. But I like to go to your psychic ability, your intuition, your higher self alchemizing ability, remote viewing. I could spew 1,000 things that have to do with the metahuman tech you have. But there's also the technology within your body that your cells are doing. We don't think of that as technology, but it is. We think of tech as like humans made with their own hands, but what is technology? And so Billie Joe, his soul energy has to do with progression. It has to do with the masses. We also have to put in second house themes, which have to do with value and money. The thing I can't, okay. And then we also have to put in the 27 degree, which is a sense of mastery. If his degree was in the middle of the sign at like 15, this is a time when he's really getting to know the ups and downs of Aquarius in the second house. Making money, being a tech guy, and it's volatile. Like that would be 15 degrees because you're really getting the breadth and depth. If it was earlier, then there's more of an optimism. That's a part of that energetic sense. But it's green. It's brand new to the experience. 27 degrees, this guy's been through it. He knows the energy of second house as a part of identity. This is maybe being wealthy, or that your value is tied to the masses. Your value is tied to technology. And the additional piece to this, which wouldn't be something that I would be bringing up, but because it's just there, is that Mercury is nearly conjunct his sun. Conjunct means like almost the same degree. It's 1 degree off. His Mercury is at 28 degrees. Mercury is the planet of thinking and communication. and learning. And so we take those second house Aquarian components that we've already talked about. We apply that to how he thinks and what he talks about, what he communicates, how he communicates. And we have to combine that with his soul energy. So his soul energy has to do with thinking and communicating, tied to the masses, tied to technology. I mean, he uses a microphone to connect with people. That's technology. Aquarius is tied to Uranus, the planet of electricity. You know, he uses an electric guitar. He uses a microphone that's powered by electricity in order to connect with the masses. That's how he makes his money, second house. This is how he has value. His voice is value, how he thinks, his sudden ideas, his innovation. These are the things that bring him money, value, that people value in him. And this is part of his soul energy. Holy shit. Like right there, we just started this reading and we're already seeing like how this stuff lines up for him. So the summary is that he shines when his voice channels collective truth into something of a tangible value, like songs and statements and stuff that pays the bills for him, but also solidifies his worth, solidifies his value amongst the masses. There was a piece about truth that I spoke about. Now, some people aren't going to acknowledge like modern rulers of certain signs. Aquarius has two rulers, and by that I mean two planets that are associated with it. And one of them is Uranus, and I already spoke to that about the connection between Aquarius and Uranus. And Uranus is the planet representative of electricity. But the other thing about Uranus is it's a rebel. And if there's any punk rock planet, it's Uranus. And if there's any punk rock sign, it's probably Aquarius. So to also add in that flavor is important. And when it comes to truth, Uranus really wants to uncover that, which is why it's rebellious, which is why it's innovative, which is why it's a huge motivating factor for Uranus is to have truth be known. And sometimes it does that and it's kind of scary because of how Uranus works. It works so quick that people, it shocks them. But fascinating. Isn't that fascinating? Okay, let's move on to his moon energy. His moon is in Aries. He has an Aries moon. It's at 1 degree. Remember, I said look out for those later degrees. So we already talked about 27, which is a later degree for his sun sign. Now we're going to go to the very beginning. We're going to 1 degree Aries for his moon, which is in his 4th house. We are doing whole sign. I did not mention that. We are doing whole sign for those who know what I'm talking about, keeping track. There are some systems that might have things placed in different places, like different houses. For me, my whole sign and my Placidus, actually like half of the planets move into a different house. And so I'm actually going through sort of like this moment of like really being able to analyze what's making sense for me and the difference between the two. So whole sign, as I'm going through this, whole sign is really a system that's meant to be sort of a broader perspective of energy and how things work. Placidus gets more detailed and more refined, and I think for these kinds of analysis, whole system makes a lot of sense. Placidus is how we can get a little more dirty in the detail. But I think, whole sign, I mean, look, how much detail have I been giving you at this point, I think that's a pretty good amount of detail. If you're a Virgo, maybe it's not enough for you, but when are you ever satisfied? Okay, so going back to the moon, 1 degree, 4th house. An Aries moon is a hot moon. I was gonna say hot mess, but it's not a hot mess. It's just it's hot. My son is an Aries moon, and his emotions come in hot and fast. And that's what I think of automatically with an Aries moon is hot and fast. Big emotion that um, is almost impulsive. Like it's like hard to contain. 1 degree is an archetype representative of it. So it's almost like a purity to its form that lacks maturity. Not to say that Billy Joe's immature with his emotions. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that might be really hard to work with and might be, part of the reasons why we have a lot of friction going on in this chart. In fact, I can actually say, according to the analysis and the astrology, there are a couple places of friction for his emotional self, because that's what moon is representative of, in a fiery, hot sign like Aries, which is passionate, but it can also be immature. It can also like jump the gun when you're not prepared, because it is a reactionary kind of energy. So fast, brave, trailblazing, raw. This is 1st degree Aries moon. It being in the 4th house really roots that emotional energy in a place of family and home. It can show that there's a conditioning that can have to do with initiative and grit, and that's how you survive. The other thing about moon is it can be representative of mother, in which maybe mother is an Aries, where she had that grit and that, that determination. And maybe, the bravery. His mom's name is Ollie. She is the cutest little woman. She is going strong. She is, I want to say she's in her 90s now. And they recently did what is it? A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And Ollie was there, and Ollie was loving it. And she was standing up and she was taking pictures, and she seemed to be doing pretty good for herself. So to see Moon and Aries, and to know a little bit about his mom, like you can see that as sort of speaking to a sense of truth for her. Moon is also representative of intuition, which will be something we talk about later more in depth. Like I said, though, this is a place where we have tensions. We have tensions when it comes to identity, which we'll talk more about once we talk about like the ascendant, maybe more about the Jupiter energy. But also there's a tug of war with his public persona and the power he has there. And it's another 1 degree. All these 1 degrees are in here, dude. It's incredible. So his moon, his emotional private space, which has a raw energy to it, has friction with a sense of his identity, which is actually an identity that's cool cucumber kind of shit. We'll get to that. But then there's also a public persona that has balance that maybe he doesn't feel is really true in containing this Aries impulsive or passionate emotional energy. but it being in the 4th house, we're really looking at a core need of protection and home, being a safe place for emotions. So looking at all these pieces together, we see feelings are immediate and catalytic. That's that Aries energy. That's the 1 degree. That's the emotions. That's the moon. And they need a trusted home to discharge. So the courage becomes clarity and not volatility. So it needs a place to contain that. And that's all 4th house stuff. All right. So that's the second of the big 3. Let's go to the last of the big 3 is 4 degrees Capricorn. Not an early degree, but it's enough for it to still have a shininess to it. But 4 degrees, you're starting to see things not so perfectly. Like you're starting to see the cracks of the experience of Capricorn. The ascendant energy is about what I like to think of as, I always have to explain it like this. There comes a point when you're an adult when you start having an identity. I would say it was hard for me because I had a kid at 21. I don't think I really knew what my identity was for a while. And I think once I had a child, that kind of helped me gain a little more clarity on what my identity was. But it definitely like had an evolution of what I thought my identity was. You know, I thought I was an artist and a musician and I'm a creator and I'm a creative and you know, the things that I do are the things that I am, right? But I like to think of it as like the ascendant is your ego self. Once you get to a certain age and you start realizing like I don't like this piece of me and I want that to change. Once you start having that conversation in your head, that's what I think of as like this is your ascendant energy. This is like your baseline, where I'm starting from. And or another way I like to say it is I have gotten this far being this person, but maybe that doesn't work. I have survived this far as this person. But that's what I like to think of as the ascendant energy. And so for Billie Joe, this is super fascinating to me. This is when I look at this man, when I look at his chart and I think about the person that I've seen and my own intuitive, you know, whatever through the years. And to now see him is sort of like relieving because I feel like I've been watching a man who's been in turmoil of his own authority. And looking at his birth chart here and looking at his ascendant energy, we're seeing someone who's newer to the journey of being an authority and a leader. And because it's 4 degrees, so that's newer to the journey. And then Capricorn is the authority. Capricorn is the institution. Capricorn is the boundaries. And like I said, you know, this guy, he was a representative of progression, right? This is his soul energy of speaking for the masses. This is how he makes his money. We also have that rebel energy. Like this is a punk rocker. And we'll talk more about that punk rocker energy in his chart in a bit in another video, but his identity of I've survived this far has to do with authority and structure and boundary. Now, just because that is first house energy, that doesn't mean that that's the way he does it, because there is a spectrum. There's a spectrum to anything. And so we look at what is most of that, right? And we're looking at like, what are Capricorn authority? We're looking at, bosses and institutions and, CEOs and, but then there's the complete opposite, right? There's the other side of the spectrum that feels a sense of authority being outside of the self, and are victim, or feeling like a victim of authority and structure and boundaries. And so that's where Billie Joe can fit in when it comes to, I've survived this long fighting that. But that is the theme. Authority. Authority is the theme. I've had my own amazing revelations with authority, in which it was sort of like, I have job after job after job, and it seems like every boss I have, I feel like they're against me, But then there comes a point when you start realizing, like, it happens over and over and over. Maybe it's me. And this was sort of part of my revelation with ADHD, is a sense of like the stories I build up in which it affects the relationships I have, in which I am putting emotions where emotions might not even be for other people. There's a term for it. Was it RS? I don't know. But there was a realization of myself of, I am rebelling against authority. But why? But why do I rebel against authority? I do it because other people haven't and I don't. And it wasn't until the sovereign self, revelations and sort of this accumulation of like the metaphysical being, and what I've been missing is that inner authority piece. And what is that? That is feeling a sense of my own truth. That is trusting me, my abilities, and not trusting outside of me. That's what we're trained to do. And I can also say, I can relate, if this is a part of Billie Joe's story, I can relate, because Billie Joe was the youngest of 7 kids. So he was the little kid and I was the little kid. And I know what it's like to grow up and you're relying on everybody else and their intuition and what they say is truth and they've gained as truth. And you don't even know how to develop that for yourself. Nobody teaches us how to develop that. We're told to shut up and just do as we're told, as the youngest in the family. Or whatever. You don't even have to be the youngest in the family. You can just be a kid in this society. Everybody's just telling you to shut up, behave, and when you got big feelings, it's really hard to stuff it all down. And when you're stuffing down all your emotions, that's a sense of your truth, right? And your emotions are your tool, and you can't use the tool. And so then you can't trust anything that's innate of you. We're fucked up, dude. I want to change it. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Poor Billie Joe, little Billie Joe. And so like my journey was realizing, what inner authority was, but also realizing that I didn't feel a sense of what that was. And I was holding it against other people that seemed to have it, or that I had to buy into their authority, right? Because that's something you agree on. That's another sense of like our victim culture, is that we're being made to buy into other people's authority. We can choose to not adopt it. We can choose to say, oh, you know what? There was some sort of agreement where I was supposed to agree that you were to be my president. Well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm stripping you of authority. Just an idea. And so when I look at this part of Billie Joe's chart, he is a natural leader, builder. He is a man who makes something that lasts. He's a part of that conception. He adds to it. When I think about rock and roll, which is near and dear to my heart, I think about how Green Day have helped to try to keep that structure up. I've tried. Maybe there was a little bit of foundational work they had to reset. But he's keeping a legacy alive. And that's that Capricorn energy. Reliable through time. It's supposed to keep things alive. There's other energies that could have been in here, but that's not what is there. But it's also a restrictive energy because it needs to be picky in order to keep things keep things long standing. Okay. And to add to that, I need to talk about what's called his chart ruler. So I mentioned a little bit about the ruling planet with Aquarius being Uranus. Well, for Capricorn, it's Saturn. And because Saturn is his first house, Saturn becomes what's called the chart ruler, and where it's placed is very important in what he does in this life. And to see his chart ruler in another earth sign, and now at the 29-degree mark, the last degree, this is mastery. Mastery of being the boss. Saturn is everything I said about Capricorn, that applies to Saturn. And for it to be in Taurus is to have a sensual sensibility to it, is to have a physicality to it. So everything that I just said about Capricorn, like it doubles with Taurus, except Taurus gives us that music edge, gives us that artist edge. It can even be fine living, you know? Like there's a lot of things in his chart that are just screaming that fame was going to happen and that this dude's going to make money. Like he could have been punk rocker, he could have been accountant. He could have been let me think, a civil rights lawyer or commentator, and I don't know. I don't know about that combo. I haven't gotten someone with this kind of chart yet. And we're not at that analysis quite yet. I'm looking at the work houses here. The 10th house is about Libra. That's equality, balance. I think that can be artsy and music-y too. Definitely a communicator though. Okay, where was I? Yes. The other ascendant energy piece we need to add into this, I got to go back to the fame thing. Is Jupiter. Jupiter is the great expander, and once you fucking know, it's at 1 degree. 1 degree. This is archetype energy. This is expansive, and it's a contradiction because Jupiter is expansive. It's optimistic. It's the great benefic, but it's in Capricorn, which is supposed to be like shrinking things and giving you less and bringing you back to the reality and the bullshit. And so there's Jupiter at 1 degree of the Capricorn, and so it's an interesting dynamic, but it's so close to his ascendant energy that we need to take into consideration that this Capricorn 4-degree ascendant energy also includes fame, or like prominence in teaching or mentorship, which would be that Jupiter piece. Jupiter is also very spiritual as well. So there could even be this touch of spiritual element with that ascendant energy. But more friction here. See the two red lines? We've got when something's triggered here, at his ascendant energy, this boss authority energy, it's going to trigger his emotional self and it's going to trigger his public facing self. So whatever actually happens at sort of this human evolving human level, it's discordance with a sense of like his inner self and his public facing self. This guy gets away with nothing. There's a lot of push and pull inside this person, which is why you become a musician. You become the person who can talk about it. It's very therapeutic. So in summary, with his ascendant, when he walks in a room, people see an architect. He's serious. He's committed. He's built things to last. His band has been around since 1987. They had a different name in 1987. And he's been married since 95. That's 30 years. This is a man who builds things that last. And when he walks through the door, that's what people see. People see that. And his soul energy is being the communicator for the masses. That's his value. But there's an emotional turbulence that he has to work to rein in that will always affect that architect energy, but also that evolving, powerful public persona. So what I like to do to wrap up this section, first of all, here's what I have for a summary for him. You are a builder poet of the people. Your Aquarian sun channels collective currents into tangible value. Your Capricorn rising makes it real and lasting, and your Aries moon provides the spark to act now. You feel most aligned when you protect a brave, my screen just went blank. When you protect a brave, honest home base while leading publicly with structure and integrity. Integrity is an important piece here. There's a reason why his band has been around for as long as it has. And I remember, and this is just an aside here, I remember at one point him bitching about other bands airing their dirty laundry like out in public. Like, how can you have trust in your tribe if that's how you do what you do? Like, that's not how you build integrity, and it's not how you build something that lasts. He would know. His life path is the marriage of courage, discipline, and future-minded voice. I think he's done that well. And how I would end this section is I like to take these energies and I like to come up with a name for your chart based on this astrology. So I've got 3 options: the fire heart visionary, independent soul builder, and the revolutionary sage. And from there, I name the chart. I pick one of those names, and that's how I name the report or the chart. And for Billie Joe, I chose the fire heart visionary. If you are interested in having something like this, go to my website, nextgenmedium.com, and scroll down a little bit and you'll see a part where it says, do you want a reading? Do you want a psychic medium reading? Or do you want a chart analysis? Click on that chart analysis and fill out a form and we'll get started from there. I said on October 1st, it is November 1st, by the way. On October 1st, I was going to change the prices. Well, I haven't gotten around to changing that. So fuck that. If you want to pay $50 for one of these reports, we could do that. If you want to do $125 for all three, I would love to do that as well. I will hold steady to that price because that's what's on the website and I haven't changed it. So nextgenmedium.com to do that. And coming up, we're going to take a look at Billie Joe's inner planets, which is how he does what he does. So we're looking at a closer look at that Mercury energy. We're taking, that is the communicator, learner and thinker. We're taking a look at Venus, how he loves and the deal with relationships. We're looking at Mars, what motivates, what moves him. And then we're going to take a deeper dive into the generational energies. And this is where that punk rock piece comes back. And maybe some spiritual components that I think help lead him as a musician, as a creator and artist. So that'll be coming up in the next video. So please subscribe if this is something you're interested in watching. Sign up for my Sovereign Self community that's coming in January. I don't know how many people are going to be interested in this. So if you tell me it's something you want to do now, then I can sort of prepare as to like how many people are going to be a part of this and how we're going to logistically do things. So go sign up at my website, nextgenmedium.com, and check me out on Instagram and Facebook. If there's another social media platform, please tell me what it is below that you use because I am totally willing to ditch those. Place a comment below. I've got things for sale at my shop, including a e-course. This e-course is actually going to be integrated into the community as part of the subscription cost. So if you want to get started on that, I will also be sending you an invite to join my Sovereign Self community. I think it's at $80 right now for that course. So check that out at nextgenmedium.com. And of course, I do psychic medium readings. I've been dying to do some lately. Nobody's really shown any interest. So if you want to do one, I can probably do one next weekend if you're interested. Check that out, nextgenmedium.com. Thank you for watching this all the way through. And I will be chatting with you next time when we'll be diving deeper into Billie Joe Armstrong's birth chart and his intuition analysis.